Okay, so let's find a comfortable seat. So if you're if you're used to sitting on nothing, sit up on something. So see if you can find a blanket or a block or a bolster or something, and just sense into, for a moment, just kind of rock back and forth and feel your way into some of that movement of the pelvis where you might feel yourself rolling back on your pelvis and rolling forward on your pelvis, and just enjoy, just getting to know, maybe your back needs a little support. Just see what position ultimately feels best for you to sit in. So typically you want a little bit of a curve in your lumbar spine, so you don't want to roll back even though that might be habituated in your body. So just pay attention. And then you also don't want to tip so far forward that you feel like you're spilling yourself forward. So find your Goldilocks. And once you have that, start to pay attention to how your spine lands over this deep support of the pelvis. Imagine your pelvic bowl, all the bones and the full shape of your pelvis to be this deep ground for your spine to both root and also rise from. And notice how heavy your head can be if it's not quite where it needs to be. So just like we tipped our pelvis forward and back, move your head forward, either like jut your chin forward or drop your head down or swing your head back, and just pay attention to the subtle ways in which that, really takes you off your center. And then, let that pendulum swing land so that you really feel the effortlessness of supporting your head. Once you have that, go ahead and close your eyes. And the last kind of piece of the puzzle is your shoulders. So just notice if they tend to hunch forward or if they tend to push back. And again, feel into that, sort of neutral territory where you have the sense that your shoulders are right where they are most efficiently able to be. So slight engagement of the core, just so small. It doesn't have to be a big grip, but we're not totally absent either. Bring yourself into the fullness of your breath, feeling your heart expand open. Lots of room for your ribs in all their directions to move with the breath. As you settle your body, draw into the breath. Let your mind link up and tether to the sound and rhythm of your breathing. Let your breath be a respite for your thinking. We have a bit of grounding from a simple moment of presence and breath. And let's bring our hands together at our heart. And you can bow your head if you'd like, or keep it upright. Just have a moment to offer an intention here. What is it that you are cultivating? What do you want to bring forth into the day? Let's release the hands and find our way coming to our back. All right, so as you lie down, enjoy. It's such a gift to uh, find horizontal outside of time to go to sleep, where we have an opportunity to really feel how nice the ground supports us. So maybe start just by feeling whatever's touching the ground. Your head, your shoulders, your pelvis, any part of your legs, whatever's touching down. And then invite a little bit of movement, arms overhead, and create that beautiful morning stretch of reaching one side, reaching the other side, and opening up your ribs and your shoulders and your hips. And just enjoy the impact on your nervous system. There's something very invigorating about stretching your arms overhead. So enjoy what this does. And then bring your knees into your chest and go ahead and rock a little bit, sway. Can't really, I know I said we're going to kind of get into some deep held stretches of our hips, but that includes your back as well. When we kind of dive into this part of the body, we want to pay attention to the relationship between our pelvis and our low back. So when your knees are here and you're just rocking a little bit, see how things are. How's your low back today? Do you need to care for yourself in any specific way? All right, let's hang on to the knees and do some circling, some rolling. Full breaths. All right, and then go the other direction, finding a little bit of mobility. And then third direction, opening up your hips. And you don't have to do exactly the way I do it. Maybe you want to zigzag your hips, or find just some other way of just exploring what the range of your hip joint feels like today. And be very mindful as you move your knees in this way to pay attention to the rim of the hip joint. It's a ball and socket. So can you feel that full movement of the ball in the socket? Is there any part of that rim of your hip that you can't find? Right knee into your chest, give a nice good squeeze. Maybe start moving around in your feet, wiggling your toes, say hi. It's such an important part of our body, our ankles and our feet, to get loose and free. And then put your left foot onto the ground and grab onto your right foot. And let's draw the right knee down toward the ground. So a little bit of a half happy baby. And maybe your left leg wants to straighten, but maybe not yet. This might be that's a lot of deep work, of deep flexion in the hip. So kind of dole out the pose accordingly. And then release that. And as you stretch out to a star, notice the openness through the front of that right hip. After the compression, feel the openness. And then exhale and draw your knees into your chest. Pick up your head, let your back round a moment. And then put your head back down onto the ground. Left knee into the chest. And your right leg can be straight on the ground or knee bent, whatever feels good. Have another opportunity to feel all the joints in your feet, have some fluidity and mobility. Good, snug, tight squeeze of the knee and hip. And then you can bend your right knee, put out your foot on the floor if you'd like. We're going to come into half happy baby pose on this side. And you might notice that you get a little catch, or you have to maneuver a little differently to get your hip into place. So just notice the patterns that you have in your body, the peculiarity of each of your joints. If you want to straighten your right leg on the ground, by all means you can, but if this is a little too deep of a pose for the beginning, that's okay too. All right, and then stretch open, starring your body out on the ground, reaching your fingers and your toes, draw the knees into the chest, pick up your head, and put your feet back down onto the ground. Feet hip width apart. Let's windshield wiper our knees and just enjoy the simplicity of twisting. Right and left. Doesn't matter how far you go. Doesn't matter how fast you go. All right, then scoot the hips over to the right, pick up the knees and drop them over to the left, and feel a fuller twist here. And maybe your left hand wants to hold your right knee. Maybe you don't need that. So just see the twist unfurl. Maybe your head turns all the way to the right. Maybe you have a sense of your chest opening up. Maybe you want to move your arm around. Just see what kind of freedom arises. Discover your breath. Come back to center. Let's scoot the hips over to the left. Knees come up and drop to the right and twist open here. Full breathing in, full breathing out. And then come back to center. One more time, finding a star on the ground. And then exhale and draw your knees into your chest. Let's roll to your side. All right, so coming up onto all fours. Let's enjoy as you start to invite some spinal movements, some cat cows. Just start to notice, pay attention to how your spine wants to move today. Right? Does it feel good to stay in one place? Does it feel good to stay mobile and continuously moving, rippling through your spine? How's the breath relating to the movements? And feel free to wag your tail, to move some circles in your shoulders or your ribs or your head, whatever feels good. All right, and reinvigorate your hands on the ground. We're going to take our left leg straight back behind you, curl your toe under, just push off your toes for a moment, just kind of bouncing a little bit off so that you can stretch open your calf. And then after a couple of passes of that, we're going to cross that left foot over to the right side of your mat. Turn and look out over your foot and enjoy the sensation of stretching your hip and your low back, and maybe even you can feel this in your side waist, wherever you feel the stretch. Open up into your breath. And come back to center and let's switch sides. Take your right leg straight back behind you, curl your toes under, open up through your calf, and maybe just a little bit of pushing off so you feel some mobility in your lengthening of your calf. And then cross that right foot over to the left. Face the ground with your hips and chest, and then look out over your right foot on the left side of your mat. Just feel that stretch. Notice, does this feel different or the same as the other side? So, when we do this asymmetrical work, one side and then the other side, pay attention to the subtle differences between the two halves of your body. All right, coming back, find your way to child's pose. Stretch your hips back and kind of nestle into this pose. Maybe you want to rock a little bit in your hips and just find as deep of a child's pose as your knees and hips and ankles can allow. Rest your forehead. If it comes to the ground, let it rest to the ground. Feel your breath. Sometimes we have our knees real wide for this pose. Sometimes we like them a little bit more narrow, whatever is working for you. Walk the hands far out in front of you and look up for a moment and inch the fingers. So you're almost like you want to come out of the pose. Lift your chest off the floor and then release and rest back down. Walk the hands over to one side or the other so we open up through the side of the body. Of course, I primarily feel this in my shoulder, but maybe you primarily feel this in your ribs or in your side body. But also notice the subtle little shift right in your low back, that one side's opening and one side's not. And then come back, walking your hands over to the other side. Feel that full length in your body. Drop a little weight into your pelvis and see if you can feel that openness in the QL, quadratus lumborum. that deep low back muscle, opening up on that side. All right, coming back to center, move your spine around again. Of course, you can take fists on the ground if you need it. All right, we're gonna do some circling with the pelvis. So start in a neutral flat plane with your spine and imagine that your tailbone has a paintbrush on it and we wanna draw a big circle on the wall behind us. So some people might say it's kind of like a spiral or a hula hoop action, or, just like a belly dancing, just anything that you can kind of visualize in your body that helps you rotate and undulate your pelvis. Okay? This is a great movement to loosen the muscles in your low back. There's a lot of mobility that happens in the fascia of your low back and the deep low back muscles. All right, let's go the other direction. Try to remember that we're, using our sit bones to widen as we arch our back, just feel into the full mobility of our pelvis. All right, and then back towards child's pose. Again, walk the hands far out in front of you, lengthening and inching forward. Deep drop into your knees and your hips. Let's come forward into a puppy pose. So opening up the upper back, arms are on the ground. We drop our chest and head toward the ground. Hips are high. Just feel that slight little back bend that lives in your thoracic spine. All right, and then come back to neutral. Lift your right arm up in the air. Okay. And as you exhale, twist, drop that shoulder down, finding the threading of the needle, and enjoy. Let your breath get as deep and full as you can make it. There's a lot of restriction around the ribs when we're twisting, so feel your breath touch up against that restriction. And now reach that arm all the way back up. Hand comes down, changing sides. Arm high, drop it underneath. Twisting this way, notice if one side is more available than the other. Do you have a preference for twisting in your body? Breathing deeply. Feel the breath touch up against the ribs. Melt your neck. Try not to take strain in your head, your eyes, your neck. Inhale and reach that arm back up in the air. Hand comes down onto the ground. Come onto your shins for a minute and just shake out your hands. Roll around in your wrists. And then place them back down and find dog pose. So as you reach upward, enjoy. Now we get our wholeness, our whole body to kind of find the length here. So take a moment to move. Pedal your feet, knead your feet or your hands like a cat on the ground. Move your hips around, move your spine around, whatever, your head, whatever kind of helps you access kind of engaging your whole body. And feel the stillness of this posture. Bend your knees, even if you don't typically bend your knees, and feel the ribs lift a little bit into the body and feel the length. Push off the hands and feel the length in your spine. And straighten your legs a little bit more. Try not to sink. Walk your feet forward. Come to Uttanasana. Blocks are great if you enjoy using blocks. Come to a forward fold. Let your head dangle. Wag your tail if you want. And inhale for a halfway lift, getting a little longer in your spine. Exhale and relax to melt a little bit further. Just feel that full back wide open. One more time, a halfway lift. Extending. Exhale. Melting. Push off your feet. Come on up, bring the arms to the sky. So take your time. If you know you need to kind of segment yourself upright to help your blood pressure find its way, then take your time. Okay. As you're ready, enjoy the openness. Maybe lean back, maybe cactus your arms, just kind of stay high to the upper body a little bit. Reach the arms all the way up and bring them behind your back. Grab a strap or interlace your hands behind your back, whatever feels nice to you. Open across the fronts of your shoulders. Feel your heart lift toward the sky. And then bend forward and let the arms reach away from the spine. Relax your head. Hug your shoulder blades toward each other. Let the low back open up here. So bend your knees. And then release your hands. Let's come to a halfway lift, extending the spine. Exhale back to a dog pose. Feeling that reach in space. Opening up the breath. Maybe a little pedaling. Maybe you're ready to be still. Spread the hands. Spread the toe beds. Root to rise. Come forward into a plank when you're ready to feel that sturdy self. Shoulders away from the ears. Wrap your core around you. Find breath. Knees down first. Come to the floor. Roll the shoulders a few times here. Inhale for a cobra pose. Big open chest. Exhale. And relax to melt down. One more time. Opening up. Full breaths here. Exhale and relax again. Draw your left knee up high toward your armpit. Look at your left knee for a moment. Just let that one side of your back open up. And then come back to neutral. And let's, before we twist, which we're going to do, so make sure your blocks are out of the way, come onto forearms and kind of push your elbows down and forward so you get a little extra weight into your hips and drop into that left hip. And then let's open up into the twist. Cross the right arm over to the left and twist your body open. And let the knee leave the floor. Feel the joy of opening across your shoulder and your chest. Deep breath. And the spinal twist's really good for you. The supine ones in particular, most safe. So enjoy what this offers you. And then come back. Straighten that left leg, come onto the ground, and let's bring our right knee up high toward your armpit and turn and look at that foot. So, think about like the way salamanders, kind of move their bodies. See if you can have that side body motion that is along with the hip flexion. And then come back to neutral, forearms on the ground, and try to drop your hip joint into the ground. And then we'll open up into a twist across the left arm over and twist open here and hang out and enjoy this. So let your knee leave the ground as much as you need. If you have strain in your back, less. You can even put your foot on your other inner knee so that you're really supporting and letting that knee leave the ground. All right, and then come back to your center, come up onto all fours and release that from your spine. So some tail wagging, some shaking in your shoulders, some shaking in your sides, and then find a child's pose. Open up through your hips here. So come up into a dog pose, feeling that long spine again. Rooting down. Notice each time we come into this posture, if your body's feeling different, let's take your legs wide
Turn your toes in just a smidge or a lot, see what feels good, and release the inner groins back. And notice the release in your low back, hopefully, when you do this. And then we're gonna walk our feet forward, coming into Uttanasana again. A halfway lift, melt and fold. Push off the feet, rising up, arms back maybe, see what feels good. Exhale, hands down. Grab your two blocks. We're gonna come into a lunge with your right foot in front, left foot in the back. As we often, almost always do, let's stretch open through the hip flexors, stretch open through the hamstrings. Just enjoy the slow openness through our pelvis. Finding breathing. All right, let's place our back knee down onto the ground, and you can always keep it up if your knee doesn't like to be down. You can pad underneath it if you need. Okay, hands on blocks, high blocks, so that you have a little support to help you lift through your spine and feel the front of that hip open up. Breathing deeply. Okay, let's lift the left arm up in the air, maybe a little arcing over, see what feels good, and let's find a twist here. Forearm to your knee, other hand on your thigh, elbow to your knee, palm to your knee, whatever feels good. Open up. Lengthen through the open heart into the twist and let the hip flexor find a deep sense of openness. And then release down. Now this is not for everybody. This is a big pose. So take your left hand on the ground, reach back with your right arm and grab your left foot. And if this is not available to you, stay where you are. Just stay in that stretching open of the hip flexors and not letting the quads be the primary action that you're stretching here. All right, so open up, lengthen through your spine. Breathing deep. All right, and then release that foot onto the ground. Take your hands onto the inside edge of your foot, and we're just gonna play with letting your knee come close to your ribs and far from your ribs. Close and far. All right, and then let that go. Child's pose. And just feel, especially with that left hip, that you just really deeply opened the front of the hip joint. Let it soften into compression now. Just relaxing like a rubber band that got stretched, and now it's just soft and not taut any longer. Coming back up, we're going to take our left foot in front. Lift your back knee up off the ground. Open up through your heart. And let's start bending and straightening this leg. Okay. Just finding the joy of stretching. Doesn't it feel good to just breathe, move your body in the range that's available? Notice it all the way down to your foot. Knee coming down to the ground. Find your way into this full posture. Hands can be on blocks to open up through that hip flexor. Round through your front foot. Try not to let your leg fall out to the side. Reach the right arm up and feel that extension. Maybe a little bit of a side bend if that feels good in your body. Round through your feet. All right, and then cross that right arm over to the left knee. Doesn't matter how far deep into the twist you go. Take your right hand on your thigh and press away so that your spine has some length. Hug to the midline with your legs. Keep pressing your front heel down. Find that connection, front heel, back knee. So the twist has some support. Open through that hip flexor. And then relax. Now, again, the quad stretch may not be available, and you can, come onto your side and do a quad stretch. You can just stay in the deep lunge, you can stand up and do a quad stretch, whatever feels right for your body. Right hand down, left arm reaches back behind you, grab onto that foot. If you get a hamstring cramp, which is not, unheard of in this pose, sometimes that can be really changed by having your, doing quad stretch on your side instead of this position. So open up, find your breath, enjoy the quad opening, and then release out of there. Okay. And again, we'll find our way into just letting that hip slide or your knee slide open out to the side and back. Open out to the side. Okay, so one more time. Find child's pose and let all the rubber bands that just got stretched taut just melt and soften. Feel ready? Find your way up into a dog pose, letting the backs of your legs open one more time. And we're gonna turn sideways on your mat to take this into a wide-legged stance. So legs are staying straight, thigh bones are moving back, shin bones are forward. You can put your hands on blocks if you need. And just open up through your inner legs a little bit. Feel the release along your spine. You can do this with your hands on a piece of furniture or a wall. Arms can be forward like dog pose. Hands can be in line with your feet. So many choices. Okay, and then we're going to heel toe our feet in a little bit, then come to a deep squat. Elbows inside your knees. Ground through the four corners of your feet. Root into those feet so there's some activity. It's not just a stretch, there's some strength in your hips as well. All the way up to standing. Again, we've been down, so coming up, if you find yourself getting dizzy, you can always take your squeeze to the midline, otherwise out to a star. One goddess pose before we get back down onto the ground. So find the roots of this posture in your hips and in your feet. Feel upright instead of like leaning forward. Come upright and put your hands anywhere that supports. And you can go as deep or as shallow into the pose. And maybe you want to glide a little bit in here and kind of glide up and down and feel that movement in your hip joints. We're opening up our knees. Feel the uprightness in your spine. Then stand all the way up. Come to a standing position, so Tadasana. Find your breath. Unlock your knees. Feel your way into your breathing. Notice how your practice already has changed how you feel in your body. Inhale, arms up to the sky. Exhale, floating down. Open up through that back again. A halfway lift. Melting again. Okay, we're going to come all the way back to a dog pose. Feel yourself move through that vinyasa, so ground yourself. When you feel ready, come forward into a plank. Holding the stability here. Push the ground away. Find the knees. Find the ground. Roll the shoulders if that feels good in your body. And then one more time, open up to a cobra or an up dog or a sphinx or any pose that feels really good. Relax. come up onto all fours. We're gonna find a pigeon pose. Okay, so when we come into this posture, and of course, reverse pigeon pose is always available too. You never need to go deeper than your body says is okay to do. But try to take whatever support that you really need for this pose. We'll do our right leg in front first, left leg behind, and support anything that needs supporting. So I have a blanket underneath my hip and my other thigh. Sometimes I just put it under my hip. Very rarely these days do I do the pose without support. I think it's important to open up your hip joints, but to not strain into the openness of your hip joints. So kind of lose the holy grail mentality of I must get flexible. I must be free. You know, that this extreme range of motion that sometimes we can get into these Pretzely poses, and there's an extreme element in our body to it. And oftentimes when we enter into the absolute edge of our range of motion, we accidentally cross past a point of no return. You know, that's safe for our body. And it puts a lot of strain on our ligaments and on our joints. So try to be in a good sweet spot where you feel an intensity of stretch, but that the joint feels like it's not being compromised in any way. And I mean multiple joints. So your SI joint, your low back, your hip joint, your knee, your ankle. There's a lot of joints involved in a pose like this. So if you feel compromised, alarm bells, some things like you're trying to get away from something, then you really should modify what you're doing. Try to feel that the sensation that's strong that you're aware of is really in the meat, the belly of your muscle energy. So you feel the fibers of your tissues opening and not just a strain at the joints. The spine is long, melt to where you can. Find our way out of this pose. Take your time. Move slowly. Perhaps you like to just swing your other leg around. Perhaps you like to lengthen back into a dog pose. So whatever, however you like to transition. Of course, if you're in reverse pigeon pose, you can just switch sides. And then as you come into the second side, again, whatever support you need, see what it feels like to note before you come down, to notice the integrity of all your joints. I think we all know the difference between a muscle sensation and a joint pain. So we want the sensation that we're feeling to be in the stretch in the belly of our muscles. And if you feel like your joint is all you can sense, then back away from whatever you're doing and find a different vector of movement. Reverse pigeon pose, there's a lot less strain. Gravity's not pressing down on your knee and on your pelvis in the same way. So there's a lot more open chain available to kind of maneuver your joints. So there's always ways to modify to make this a little safer. And once you get to a place where you're like, yeah, I got this, my joints are okay. Then feel the reach of your spine, the melting of your skull, the relaxation through your shoulders, the widening and opening through your pelvis, the sense of breath moving deeply. So even though you can kind of rub up against intensity, make sure the intensity is where it's supposed to be. And if you have a screaming urge to get out of the pose, pay attention to what really is talking in your body.
Okay, so some things are not meant to be ignored. Some things we can just breathe and ride a sensation. And only you really know the difference between safe and unsafe in your body. This is the wise practice. This is the mature, long-term, experienced yogi's practice. It's not about how deep you can go in the pose. It's about knowing your body. Where's your breath? Relax what you can. Finger away out of the pose. You're gonna be mad at me because I want you to come back to standing. But before we do that, if you have a blanket, sit on it for a moment and just sit cross-legged. Just notice if you're cross-legged, you know, the beginning meditation that we did where we kind of sensed our pelvis supporting the rest of our spine. Notice if your legs and the range of rotation that you have in your hip joints has helped you to kind of settle your pelvis a little bit better in a seated posture. Breathe deeply. And come up to stand. And as we do so, just move your props away for a moment and maybe give each leg a little bit of a shake, right? Just a little bit of a shake. Maybe a little bounce in your spine, kind of check in. All right, so a little bit of bounce. We're going to ground on your right foot and very simply just, and you can hold on to something, you know, if you need the wall or a piece of furniture. Very simply pick up your left leg and do a little figure eight in your hip joint. So internal rotation, external rotation. And don't worry about the balance. So, you know, you of course can hold something if you need it. Just kind of feel, it doesn't have to be a big movement, but just feel the slide and glide in your hip joint. And then give that leg a shake and put your foot down 2 feet for a moment. Find your breath. And then we'll root down into our left foot. Of course, use a piece of furniture or a wall to support you. So we don't want to like lean into our hip to do this. We want to have that sense of stability and open up. Okay, so we're internally and externally rotating. So the knee turns out, the knee turns in, foot follows the knee. The movement can be slow, the movement can be fast. Of course, hold something if you feel like all you're trying to manage is balance. Your core should be engaged. All right, then give that leg, maybe both legs, a little bit of a shake. Just notice, you know, maybe there's a heat in your hips or a sense of aliveness through your hip joints. All right, come down onto our back. So make sure you have a strap. As you come down to lie on your back, let's pay attention to the sensing of your hips as you put your feet on the ground. Okay, so knees are bent, feet on the ground. And just enjoy for a moment. Just relax your legs.
grab your strap. Supta Padangusthasana, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so right leg in the strap, lift it straight up in the air. We've already opened up a lot in our legs, so let's just feel our way into this. Drop your hip, lift your foot, relax your shoulders and head. Your left foot can be bent or your left leg can be straight. We're going to open up your leg out to the right and feel the inner groin open up. Feel that gracilis, big strong muscle of your inner thigh. All right, now here's the place I want to focus on a lot right now. Lift that leg back up, Supta Padangusthasana 3. Left hand on the strap. Cross the right leg over to the left. Maybe the heel of your hand presses into that hip crease and just open up some of those outer hip muscles. A little inner spiral, press through your foot, breathing well. That leg back up 2 feet into the strap. Check in with your lower back again. Feel that extension and length, the ease across your lumbar spine. When you're ready, take the right foot out. You can put your right foot on the ground or your right leg on the ground, left leg up in the air. Opening up through the hamstrings, root the femur bone, draw it back. Find your breath. Open up the left leg out to the left. Holding with the left strap in the left hand. Keep that sense of grounding through the head, through the right side of the body. That leg back up. Let's take the strap into the right hand. Cross the left leg over to the right. Maybe the heel of your left hand sits in the hip crease. Create some space in that hip joint. Open up the outer hip. We've done a lot, some internal rotation, external rotation, adduction, abduction, flexion, extension. We've moved our hips in really all the ways that the hip goes. And let's lower that leg down onto the ground. Put your feet on the ground for a moment and take your feet a little wider than your hips, and maybe draw your heels an inch or two closer to your pelvis than you might normally. And we're going to drop our right knee down toward our left foot. So a little internal rotation. Find your breath. You can always use your left foot as an anchoring on your right thigh, your right outer knee to help with that internal rotation if you'd like. And then lift that knee back up. Put your 2 feet wide again. Have a breath here. And then heels a little closer to your pelvis than you might normally feel. Drop the left knee toward the right foot. You can stay like this. You can take your right foot to the outside of the left knee for a little more depth. Being mindful the whole way of how your back is handling things. Blocks underneath your knees or legs can be a nice support if you need it. Get that knee back up. 2 feet on the ground, wider than hips. Pause for a minute, maybe take your heels, just a little smidge closer than you're used to doing. Notice if that changes your support at all. You can turn your feet out or keep them neutral. Let's have a breath into the pelvis. Grab onto your knees, give a little hug, a little rocking, let your back start to open up. Now you have some choices here. Maybe some rocking plow might feel really nice. Maybe a happy baby pose might feel really nice. Maybe rocking your knees windshield wipering might feel nice. So, just kind of find the pathway that's right for your body. As we prepare for Shavasana, you might need a little support underneath your knees. Sometimes that can be helpful after doing a practice that's really focused on the pelvis. Um, Before you totally rest, take your legs straight for a moment, even if you're going to have some support, and let's just rock. So we're rocking on our heels and taking internal, external, internal, external. Try to just let your legs wobble from the hip joints and just rocking into some internal and external rotation. And then when you're settled, take any support that you need for your back, for your hips, and just let your body come to a nice, comfortable Shavasana. You might even have your legs up a wall or your calves up on a chair or something. Whatever you're choosing to do, let's have a moment to decide whether you want your legs, hip width neutral or a little wider. Arms do you want them down close to your sides or a little wider. Take a moment to wiggle your toes and open your hand and stretch open your jaw. And then melt your body. movement that is needed in your body to help you transition. As you find your way onto your side, bring your knees close in so that you feel the back body open into a little release. Pause here for a moment and take a couple of breaths. See if you can re-emerge from your practice, gently pressing your hands to help you come upright to sit. Find yourself in a comfortable seat again. And to center and ground yourself and notice your breathing. Let's offer the gifts of our practice, any merits that you've achieved in your body or mind. Let's offer. Send your care and love outward. Namaste. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Jenny. That was great. Thank you.